Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today, we're talking about episode 28, The Nanny-Napper. As per usual, we will start with a brief summary of the episode. Because New York City is in gridlock, Fran takes the kids on the NYC subway. Trying to help an immigrant woman flocked by a gaggle of children and laden down with packages, Fran is handed the woman's baby. The woman and her children get pushed from the subway car, leaving Fran still holding the now hungry baby. Fran and kids bring the baby home and they try to make the best of the situation. Maxwell's plan of dropping the baby off at the police station is stymied by a gay pride parade, much to his surprise. Resigned to make the best of it, Maxwell finds some of Brighton's old baby clothes and he and Fran bond over caring for little Joshua Elliott. Turning the television on for the background noise, they learn that Fran is a suspect in a mid-morning kidnapping. They go to the police station where Fran suffers the humilities of being arrested, getting her mugshot taken, and being strip searched. Fran pleads her case to the mother, explaining that she wasn't a kidnapper, but rather it was just like what happened on The Young and the Restless. The mother and the sergeant recognize the situation and Fran is free to go. At home, Gracie is depressed about giving up the baby, and she asks Fran and Maxwell, why don't they have a baby? Which leaves them at least somewhat flustered. Bernadette, is there anything you want me to add to that summary?
Just that Nanny Fran is under the assumption that the baby's been abandoned.
Yes. Good. Thank you. That is a very good addition. Oh no, she's abandoned her baby.
Yeah.
Okay,
that was a great summary.
Thank you. Would you like to take us down to the New York City subway?
Yes. So we start this episode in the subway where we have not been before in The Nanny, correct?
Correct. I mean, Brighton even says, wow, Dad never lets us take the subway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're on the subway. It's crowded. It's Fran and the kids. And again, as Debbie notes, Brighton says, oh, wow, Dad never lets us on the subway. Well, it turns out that currently in New York City, there's a gay pride parade, but also the release of a new Calvin Klein ad.
Yep.
So it's like super busy.
Yes, it's a billboard.
Yes. So a shady guy walks up to Fran and yells, "Give me $1." And she yells right back with no fear, "What am I, Santa Claus? You owe me $1." And the guy gives her $1 and goes away.
I will say that is not the recommended approach.
No. No.
And actually, he's the second creepy guy on the subway.
Oh,
remember,
yeah.
At the beginning, Fran says, everyone hold on to me.
Yes.
No, not you pervert.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But
continue.
Again, Fran, the kids are impressed with how brave Fran is, and she's like, please, if if I was worried about someone yelling in my face, just her mom apparently yells at The Price is Right. Like, she's
correct.
This is nothing. And then of course, she's like looking around, nobody cares anymore for the subway, which is why it's kind of like dingy, rundown, etc. Gracie asks Fran, well, what should I do with this drink? She has like a large, like gas station type of soda.
Mm-hmm.
And Fran's just like, just leave it on the floor. So again, the classic, says something and does the opposite in the next breath.
Yeah. Or in this case, it's the exact thing that she said. No one gives a damn anymore.
That's true.
And also, I'm just going to interject. Sorry. What goes into that is, I think Maggie kind of looks around and says, "Ugh, the subway's creepy."
Oh,
and Fran's like, "No, it's not creepy. It's just no one cares. No one gives a damn anymore." So continue. Get to the highlight of the scene.
Yes. So Nanny, I keep calling, Nanny Fran, she notices a mother, an immigrant mother, surrounded by a gaggle of children, and a bunch of parcels. And again, she's like, oh, well, telling the kids, you got to do the right thing, be nice. And she goes up to the woman and asks if she could help in any way. And I don't know, was it Russian? Or did you catch what type of language
I
the
think it's
language
Russian.
in? Okay. Or some type of Slavic or,
Yeah,
some in that family of languages. Um, and so, but Fran's offering to help out by holding something because the lady's holding a baby and a large piece of salami. And the lady ends up handing the baby to Fran, and Fran kind of surprised, like, oh, I would have, if it were me, I would have given the salami. But oh, what a cute baby,
yeah, but you're a lot cuter.
a lot cuter. And again, it's a busy subway, and at the next stop, the mother and the other children are kind of, I think they're kind of leaving, but also pushed out at the same point. But like Fran doesn't notice at all that
Right.
they're leaving. She's too busy looking at at the baby in her arms, and the kids are also kind of oohing over the baby. Um,
Right. They're excited that there's a seat that opened up, which,
yes, they
if
go to the.
anyone's ever ridden the New York City subway, yes, you get excited when you can sit down.
Mhm.
Continue.
And I will say, like, didn't really like this line, um, because she's talking about something with about the mother and like this is America. She could speak English.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. That didn't age well.
Yeah. Um, but Brighton says, "Excuse me, Yentl," at some
Yes.
point as well. But anyway, Brighton points out, I think it's Brighton,
Hmm.
one of the kids points out, oh, like she's gone.
Where's
And
the mother?
yeah, Fran immediately is like, oh, she abandoned her baby. What is this world coming to? This poor defenseless little thing. And then the baby bites her immediately. Uh, and she goes, ow, someone's hungry. And can you believe that's not the first time that's happened to me in the subway?
Yeah. So clearly the baby was trying to breastfeed through her clothing.
Exactly. Yes. So again, basically what we've set up is a situation where Fran now has a baby in her possession. She's under the impression that the baby is abandoned, but we could clearly see that after the mother and children are out of the subway, the mother is trying to get back in and is like trying to pound on the glass on the door, trying to get the attention, yelling something. And so she clearly was not intending to abandon the baby at this
Correct.
point. So
And
yeah,
and she learned a valuable lesson that once the doors are closed, they're probably not going to open again.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's harsh.
the
Fran,
one line I want to
anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
the one line I want to add is, you're right. Fran says she abandoned her baby. What is this world coming to? The salami she guards with her life is the one piece I wanted to add, because
Yeah.
for some reason Fran is fixated on the salami.
Yes. It was a large salami. I will give her that, but still.
Right. I mean, it's sort of interesting because we sort of see that when the woman hands the baby over to Fran, she's sort of feeding her other children. She's handing out pieces of bread. I don't know if she was also handing out pieces of the salami. But like that's what she was doing to, try to address the rest of the situation.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that was, I think, all I had to add to that scene.
Okay. Will you take us to the house?
Sure. So Fran and the kids take the baby home, and they get into the house, and Fran says, I can't believe I'm holding a baby. And she kind of sort of mutters, sort of says to Maggie, if only he came with a husband and a house in Great Neck. Um, that's the dream, right? Husband, house in Great Neck, baby. Well, unfortunately, he didn't come with those other accoutrements. Um, but so Fran takes charge of the situation. We gotta think fast. We gotta move fast. She tells Gracie to get her pink blanket, Brighton to get his Snoopy out of his closet, and she asks Maggie for if there are any bottles, and of course Niles is there. Niles, do we have any old nipples around the house? And the comedic timing of the show, guess who walks in? Cece. And Niles puts like Fran's coat in his mouth to stop himself from saying something. Um, Maxwell then comes downstairs. Good afternoon, Cece, Niles, Miss Fine, baby. And like he doesn't even like notice that the baby like shouldn't be there. And then he like sort of does a double take. Why? And so
Hmm.
Fran explains, some woman just abandoned this baby on the subway, and it was a good thing I was there. He could have been found by some wacko one of those people who walk around talking to themselves, and then she starts walking around talking to herself. Although what I'm going to do with the baby, I'll never know. And so Cece, kind of, you prefaced this before, as Cece asks, what kind of evil, cold-hearted woman abandons a poor, defenseless creature? And Niles basically points out that Cece is that woman by pointing out to her that Yellow Cab called. You left your dog in the taxi again. And she has a sudden realization, oh my God, that's where I left my Gucci umbrella. And so she rushes off, and Niles is like, some bets that she's going to come back with the Gucci and not the Poochie.
Yep.
Poor Chester. Anyway, so Fran tries to call 911, and instead of reaching an operator or someone who could actually help her, she gets this outgoing message which starts with emergency 911. To report a murder, press 1. For a mugging, press 2. For bomb threat below 34th Street, press 3. And it just like goes on and on like that. And so she like picks up the phone and eventually hands it over to Brighton, who's come in with his Snoopy. And of course, poor Gracie's upset because she can't find her blanket anywhere, which we learned Niles was using for polishing. And then, because she had sent all the kids out to go find things, and then they're all coming back to her. So Maggie comes and says, I can't find any bottles anywhere. How about a turkey baster? And Fran says, sweetie, we're trying to feed a baby, not impregnate Ling Ling. So Maxwell decides this has been enough. And so he tries to take charge and gives Fran her coat and says, we're going to go down to the police station. And Fran says to him, I'm telling you, we're never going to get through. And he said, because she's referencing the gay pride parade and the Calvin Klein unveiling. And he says, how many gay people can there be in New York? And she points out, this from a man who produces Broadway musicals. And then they walk out. And I think that's a good place to end and then have you pick up.
Yes. Pretty soon they're walking back in through the door.
Correct.
They were not successful. Apparently, Maxwell was stopped by 100 sexy men, but Fran was only asked if her she had boobs in size 13.
No, if her boots came in size 13.
Oh, boots. Okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah,
way more sense.
Did you catch what Maxwell's comment was about being British?
My pen ran out at that point, so I was switching pens quickly.
Oh,
but there's something about Queen Victoria.
Exactly. He says, I'm British, but you don't see me marching around like Queen Victoria, as if being British has something to do with it.
Ah, gotcha.
Anyway, continue. So they're back in the house.
Yes. And, so of course the baby's back with them. Daddy, can we keep him? Gracie asks. And he's like, no, it's not like a lost puppy. Well, can I have a puppy?
Exactly.
No. But what's funny is everybody's getting attached to the baby, our baby boy. And Brighton says, we need more men in this house. There's too much blossom going on. And Fran starts referring to the baby as Joshua Elliot. Elliot for Maxwell's father, and Joshua just because she's always liked that name. So I thought it was interesting that the middle name is apparently after Mr. Sheffield's father, because one, that means she knows what his father's name is. And as far as I can recall, we have not met Maxwell's father.
We have not, but his name is
sister.
Correct. His name is not actually Elliot.
Oh, okay.
That so might be a spoiler for our future fun.
Okay. But sorry.
No,
well, I didn't know. So interesting.
I couldn't help myself.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but that's her rationale in the moment. So, wow. You can. Sorry, I'm like trying to decipher my notes. Yes, you can. What?
So,
wait. Do you have like a phrase or something, a conversation? Because I know like Maggie's holding the baby.
Yes. So Maggie's holding the baby and says, "Oh, I can't wait to have a baby of my own." And Maxwell
yes, you can wait. Yes, you can wait a lot. Says Maxwell.
You can wait a lot. Yes. Could you imagine?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. We don't need a teen pregnancy.
No. No.
No, because basically, Maggie is holding the baby, and Gracie and Brighton are kind of around her, and they're all like, ooh, over the baby. And Brian's like, "Can you say Nintendo?" Um, and again, they're like, "Who would ever want to abandon this baby, et cetera, et cetera." And then the baby starts pooping, and of course, they're like, "Ah, like, take
Yeah.
this baby away!" And Brighton says, "Give him to Fran. She's getting paid." And Fran's like, "Oh, has nobody ever seen?" And she kind of like peeks into the diaper and immediately starts like gagging and
Mm-hmm.
says, "You have far too many lentils in your diet." Niles is like kind of like, "Oh, okay, just give them to me." But then he also gets a whiff and then exits holding the baby out at arm's length.
Yeah, because even he's like, whoa, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was amusing that like they all have this the kids all have the reaction, which sort of makes sense because they're kids. And
Hmm.
then and Fran sort of comments on that, and then she has the exact same reaction.
Yeah.
Um,
And then Niles, because Niles is kind of like, oh, like I'll do it, like as if the others are wimps, but he also has a similar reaction.
I mean, I don't even want to imagine what that diaper looked like.
Hmm.
So, um,
Yeah.
the one thing I think I want to add is that first conversation between Gracie and Maxwell, where she asks if we can keep him, and he says he's not a lost puppy, he's someone's baby, and she says, "Can I have a puppy?" I loved her intonation in that discussion because she was just so
Mhm.
cute and like it was adorable. I've definitely used that tone, and it did not work for me either. Um,
Yeah. Did
but
you did you have the Department of Social Services comment in a
I did not.
separate seat? Okay.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry. I totally
so
jumped.
yeah. So basically after Niles' exit, um, Maxwell is going to he says he's going to call, okay, that's it. I'm going to call the Department of Social Services. Fran's like, "Oh, it's a Sunday at 4. I'm sure they're, just waiting for you." Um, and she notes something about the gr- he's gotten a gray streak in his hair since she's worked there.
Mm-hmm.
He's all wound up, and you need to calm down before something you say something you'll regret. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm already regretting when I said you're hired." Um, and then Fran's like, "Okay, let's just take the baby to the, like, fine, we'll take the baby to the white zone at the airport. They'll, police will come in seconds there." Um, and then Cece comes in, not seeing the baby. And at first she's like, "Oh, Maxwell, you took care of it. I was so worried." Then she notices that the baby's still there and she says, "Well, slap that kid's face on a milk carton and let's get back to work." So again, classic Cece. But yeah, that's how I ended that scene.
Oh, that's fair. I guess I just wanted to talk more about the conversation with Gracie and Maxwell.
Yeah.
Um, because at the very end of that, um, Fran chimes in about how, oh, I don't know, a puppy may help fill the void after we have to give away our baby boy.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
all I
yeah,
wanted to add.
you could basically see the attachments being formed.
Yeah. Um, so then we go into the kitchen, I believe,
Yes.
and Fran has what looks like baby food, and she's trying to feed him the baby. That is, Joshy, what's the matter? Why aren't you eating? And then she tastes the baby food. Niles, what the hell is this? And he answers, pureed liver and Brussels sprouts. And she says, the stuff that came out of him is more appetizing than that. Ugh, like yuck. Um, and so Maxwell comes in, and he has this like white banker's box, right?
Hmm.
And Fran basically asks, what's with the box? Are you planning to mail him to the police station? If so, you better punch some holes in the top." Like she explains that she's just trying. She also explains that she's just trying to like feed him, give him one last feeding before dropping him off at the orphanage. And Maxwell's clearly sort of come around. He says that it's the box full of Brighton's old baby clothes that he thought might be helpful. Um, and so Fran, says thanks and like starts talking to the baby. Oh, isn't he a nice man? Isn't he a good man? Yes, he is. And Maxwell basically takes the baby from her, saying, I think you're becoming far too emotionally attached to this child. And then he does the exact same thing with the baby talk, talking to the baby. Oh, yes. Isn't she, little fella? Yes, she is. I think she is. Like, kind of like the taunting tone that adults take on when talking to babies.
Mhm.
And, Fran comments, oh, you look very natural. And Maxwell says, well, I've been there 3 times. And, oh, if my expertise serves me, I think we need another changing. And so he and Fran are, go over to the counter. And to me, it's amusing because that's the same counter where they tried to save Imogene's life, Imogene, the
Uh-huh.
imaginary friend. And like,
Mhm.
that's another instance of them working together in that same space. This time was a bit more successful since was not an imaginary friend. Um, but so like, Fran is sort of at Joshy's feet, and Maxwell points out you probably don't want to stay there. You never know with little boys. Brighton once shorted a wall clock, and so she moves. And then, of course, sort of on cue, as they remove the diaper. Guess what? There's a shot of urine across the room. Um, and do you actually? I believe the reason that little boys do that is because of the change in temperature from removing the
I
diaper.
think that's I think that's what I heard too.
So I wanted to make sure to mention that. And of course, Fran makes the comment, we know one thing for sure, his mother was not speaking Hebrew. We'll
Mhm.
explain that later. Um, and so anyway, they finish changing the diaper and they've worked together, and it's very domestic, happy scene, right? And
Mhm.
Fran says, oh, honey, would you, or Mr. Sheffield, will you put the TV on? They like the background noise. So he puts on the television, and, they're holding the baby. And there's a little political story that finishes up about Senator Dole. And then they say, in local news, police are looking for a woman in connection with the mid-morning kidnapping. And they show a picture of a woman with big dark hair, pretty face, and looks just like Fran. And Maxwell points out, oh my God, it's you. And she's like, no, it's not. And then we hear on the TV, the suspect is said to be 5'7", approximately 105 pounds, and in her early 20s. And Fran's like, oh, you're right, it is me. And she's like, don't worry, Mr. Sheffield, this has nothing to do with you. And then on the TV says the woman is believed to be working for this man, Broadway producer Maxwell Sheffield. And there's a picture of Maxwell Sheffield.
Mhm.
And so he basically is like, okay, we're gonna go to the police station now. Like, let's go. Um, do you want to add anything to that scene?
Yeah. So, after her comment about mother not speaking Hebrew, what's funny is like Maxwell starts like giving the baby some raspberries,
Yes, he
blowing
does.
baby's stomach. And he's like, "Oh, babies love it when you blow on their stomachs." And Fran goes, "Who doesn't?"
It's true.
And Maxwell doesn't even like react. They just keep going. And then, Maxwell apologizes for how he reacted earlier. And then Fran starts too. And then she's like, wait, I didn't do anything wrong. And then that's when, oh, honey, would you? Oh, I mean, Mr. Sheffield. They turn on
Right.
the TV and now she's a wanted woman. But it's funny because when they first look at the picture and, the stories about someone who's kidnapped a child, Fran goes, look at that nut. Nut. And I'm like,
Yeah. Something
yeah,
about how can't believe people like that are walking around free or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I
Would
can
you
take
like?
it to the police
Perfect.
station. Yep.
Thank you.
So, um, Maxwell and Fran enter the police station. Now, is this a spot where we want to kind of explain what Fran is wearing?
I think so because she changed from what she was wearing before, which is one of the questions I had.
Yeah,
Why?
I don't know. Because she is now, well, when we first see her, she has a very large, how would you describe it?
Fluffy.
Fluffy, fluffy white coat. Um, and underneath that is like kind of a short white form-fitting dress,
Mhm.
kind of like a halter
Well, I think
or
it's more like a turtle, like a mini, like a half turtleneck, because
yeah,
it
it's
does
like
have.
the shoulders are exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like white heels, right?
Yes.
Yes. Um, so she walks in with Maxwell And she comments about how it looks like, I'm assuming it's going to be one of our notable New Yorkers, Hackney and Lacey.
Yep.
No wonder there's so much crime. It's like the stereotypical dingy kind of New York police station. Busy. Um, Fran asks Maxwell to take a number, and he scoffs that this is not a bakery. But of course, at that moment, there's a ding, number 62. So
Mm-hmm.
goes and grabs the number. And Fran kind of, as Maxwell leaves, she kind of leans over to the lady like, men, what are you going to do with them? And the lady says, not going to shoot them next time.
Yeah.
So, then Maxwell comes back, and Fran is now referring to the baby as Jeremy Matthew.
Yes.
What happened to Joshua Elliott? Oh, I got tired of it. And then I think Maxwell says, I like the name Joshua.
Yeah.
So they get called up. It's their turn. And Maxwell's like, oh, I'll talk to him. And Fran's like, no, no, no. This is my mess. I'll talk to him. And she says something like, hey, Dick, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, Sergeant Dick. Who would have thought of that? Um, but anyway, then she uh lets Maxwell go instead.
Right. Like, here, you try it. Basically,
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I've been taking care of a street baby all day.
Yep, yep. And again, she's committed a crime. She's here, she's wanted for a crime she did not commit. What, prostitution?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a hooker. I'm a kidnapper.
Bingo.
Anyway, so she is put under arrest. She wants Maxwell to get Jacoby and Myers.
Mm-hmm.
But she wants the fat one, not the skinny one. I'm assuming, are they like well known in New York, or is this just a
Yes.
random? Okay, okay. But the officer informs her she has a right to remain silent. Maxwell, of course, has to say, well, she doesn't seem to know that right. And then there's like a very brief scene. I didn't know if you wanted to put in the next or if you wanted me to include in this one, where
Either way.
she's getting her mugshot.
Correct.
And so of course, first they're like shoes. She takes off her shoes. She noticeably shrinks.
Mm-hmm.
Hair. And someone puts, their hand to push down her hair, and she is so offended. And that, of course, is like when the picture is taken with her like mouth agape. And so instead of that 5'7" that was reported on the news, it looks more like she's 5'4".
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything to add?
Not on the mugshot front.
Okay.
So after the mugshot, she's being led out by a police officer. And she says, height is one thing, but if you think I'm going to step 1 foot on a scale, you might as well just put me in a cell and throw away the key. And then she kind of like pauses. What's next? I'm feeling very violated. And the police officer kind of looks at a piece of paper and says, we're going to have to strip search you. And she says, oh no, not until there's a ring on this finger and 2 tickets to Aruba. And then this really handsome looking police officer walks over to like escort her. And she sort of changes her tune to, well, I wouldn't want to obstruct justice. And so he leads her, basically down and across the hall into a room. He hands the piece of paper over to a large woman who follows Fran in, and Fran tries to like escape, but is pulled back in. So at that point, Niles arrives, and Maxwell, and he's like confused, and Niles explains, I was watching America's Most Wanted, and lo and behold, in gestures, and then he hands Maxwell a bag. I brought you a fresh shirt and your shaving things. And Maxwell explains he doesn't plan to be there very long. And how did you get here? And Niles says, I borrowed a poodle and walked. In fact, I got several job offers. What's the difference between a butler and a houseboy? And Maxwell kind of looks at him and says, in your case, about 30 years, Niles. And Niles replies, rot in jail, sir. And at which point, Fran comes out and she's complaining, well, there's one fantasy shot to hell, and she's, trying to straighten her appearance. And yeah. Do you want to add anything?
No, no.
Would you like to keep talking to us about the police station?
Yes. So we're still in the police station, and Niles is looking at the board, like kind of like the different wanted board. And Cece comes in, and she's like, she apparently had fallen in a ditch, and Niles had totally left her there. And Niles is like, "Oh, I didn't realize it was you. I just saw, a woman in a blonde in an olive overcoat, there one minute and then gone." And she's like gesturing to herself, "Hello, olive overcoat."
What am I wearing?
Yeah, yeah. But then she spots Maxwell, goes over. Did I miss it? Is she incarcerated? And Max was like, "You could show some concern." Maxwell, my concern is, you know, for you. And, before Nanny Fine came along, I didn't catch this rest of that statement. Do you
We
have that?
never had to step foot in a place like this.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So then
Yep.
a girl comes up and says, "Girlfriend."
She starts with Cece.
Yeah, Cece, girlfriend. Good to see you.
No, got you again, huh?
Oh, yep. See, my notes are messy. And she's like, "I don't know this woman." Like she's very confused.
Right.
And
You must have me confused with someone else. And then she
yeah.
turns to Maxwell. I've never seen this person before in my life. And then the woman says,
Second Avenue, Leon's looking for you.
Yeah, she starts by saying, "Oh, so that's your game. That's cool. Just stay off Second Avenue. Leon's looking for you."
Yeah. And then she walks off, and Cece's still trying to convince Maxwell, but you see Niles gives the lady some money. How was it, Sugar? So good. I could do it again and again and again. And like Niles' facial expression at this point, like it's so mischievous. Like he's very pleased. Very, very pleased with how this went. But it's funny because then later, again, Cece's trying to like still sort this out. And as the lady's walking away, Cece follows her. Like, "Oh, did you go to Bryn Mawr?" And I don't, again, how you want to sort this out with Fran coming back in. Do you want me to continue, or do you want
You can continue because I want the next scene. So,
"Oh, Miss Fine, what happened?" 7 women, 1 toilet, no door. I guess Big Bertha was doing her business. She's had it rough. And in comes uh, the mother of the baby, and she's again yelling in a foreign language, something like Russian. And Fran's like, "Oh, please, I can't last. I only went 3 times, to the bathroom in summer camp. I can't make it for years." And so she's going to be led away by the cops, and she's pleading with the woman, like trying to, explain the situation. And then she mentions this is like Nikki on Young and the Restless. And as soon as she says Young and the Restless, something clicks, like the lady recognizes it. And then so they start kind of like communicating in a way about the Young and the Restless. And apparently there was a shower scene that was not suitable for network, but
for daytime TV. They showed us way too much for daytime TV.
Yeah, but they're bonding over the Young and the Restless. And then the sergeant cuts in like, "Oh, stop. It wasn't Cricket's baby." Oh, yeah. So now the sergeant is kind of aware of the situation, I guess, that was, that reference to Young and the Restless explained what happened. And so she says, "Okay," he says, "You're free to go." And then as the Russian, again, I'm assuming Russian, it could be another, sorry.
So
lady.
we don't learn it on the episode what language it is, but on like IMDb and other sites, she's referred to as Russian. So
Okay.
I think
Okay.
it's safe for you to say Russian.
Yeah. So like goodbye. Can I say bye to the baby? Oh, better wave. Um, but she's been referring to the baby as all these names, but the mother on the way out is kind of gestures towards the baby and says, Zibinar? I don't know.
Zbigniew.
Okay. And Fran's like, oh, he's gonna have fun on the playground.
Yeah.
And then the lady cop starts to um sorry, Fran says, "Oh, I've only known him for a couple of hours, but I'll never forget him." Um and our time together. And then the lady cop from across the room starts kind of waving at Fran, and she goes, "Quick, act like we're, together to Maxwell," and they make a speedy exit out of the police station.
Yeah. I'll never forget her either. Quick, pretend we're together.
Yeah. Yep. Anything you want to add to that scene?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So
Take it to the kitchen.
thank you. So we're now in the kitchen, and the three Sheffield children are in their pajamas, and Niles is there purportedly watching them, maybe. And the kids are making themselves very large ice cream sundaes. Um, and Brighton says that, I sort of liked having a baby in the house, except I had no idea how much work they were. And Maggie adds, and they're always making a mess, at which point she was trying to scoop the ice cream, and the ice cream scoop went flying and lands on the on the floor, so Niles cleans it up. And then Brighton says, "You know what, Niles, on second thought, can you bring these upstairs so we can watch TV?" And Niles just kind of looks at them, and with a very Niles, like, I don't have a better descriptor, but in a very Niles fashion, says, "I have two words for you: Hansel and Gretel." And Brighton says, "Actually, that's three words." Without saying a word, Niles, with one quick movement, opens the oven door, and it
Mhm.
it like makes a loud noise, and the kids kind of, Brighton and Maggie kind of react to that, and they go and pick up their own ice cream and leave. So at that point, Fran and Maxwell come in, and they see Gracie, who's still at the table eating her ice cream, and there's all of the ice cream, toppings all over the table. And I think Fran comments on the mess that's made. And Gracie kind of apologetically says, "I'm binging. I'm a little depressed about giving back the baby." And Fran says, "Oh, honey, we had to give him back. He wasn't ours." And Maxwell adds, "That's right. He didn't belong to our family." And so Gracie ponders it for like half a second, says, "Oh, then why don't you two make a baby?" And Fran's like, "Take it away, Mr. Sheffield," which understandably, she doesn't want to touch that question with a 10-foot broomstick.
Mhm.
And Maxwell is clearly caught off guard, and he says, "Well, we'd have to be, you have to be married." And Fran's like, "Right." And Maxwell adds, "There'd have to be an engagement." And Fran says, "I'd want a big ring and a party. Don't ask." And Gracie
Mhm.
kind of cuts through their bullshit and says, "But you could have a baby and get married if you wanted to." And Fran tries to like explain this way, "Well, we'd have to be best friends to see if we could live together. And of course, there'd have to be very strong physical attraction." And then she like cuts herself off because she and Maxwell like touch hands, or they touch something and they look at each other. And then she turns back to Gracie, "Would you go to bed already?" Like, as a way to get rid of her, to end the conversation. And Maxwell comments about how children have such vivid imaginations. Why is the sky blue? Where's heaven? Why don't you and I have a baby? And Fran kind of says, "Well, meanwhile, I wonder if I'll ever be a mother." And Maxwell tells her, "Well, there's always the subway, Miss Fine." And she says, "Forget it. The next time I bring home a baby, it will be after 9 months of swollen ankles and an epidural that could bring down Secretariat." That's all I have for the scene.
Yeah. So I did want to add in that exchange when Gracie's asking him questions like, "Why don't you two get married?" "Well, you need to be in love." "Well, you guys love each other, don't you?" "Uh, yeah, but in a nanny friend boss kind of way." "Yeah, and I, in a thanks a lot, you British cold fish way."
Thank you.
Yes, that was just funny. But yeah, I mean, Gracie, out of the mouth of babes.
Exactly. And she delivered that so well. That
Mhm,
Madeline Zima, she did it such a good job with that
mhm.
scene.
Yeah, yeah. So then the credits scene, Fran is in that white outfit I previously described. This seems to I can't tell if they're, like, parodying a movie or if this is just meant to be kind of a play on Fran's, like, fantasy or what, but it's as if she's being interrogated at the police station, but she's, like, very purposefully kind of sexy, like, crossing her legs, um, you know, she was putting on makeup, and they're like, "Stop," and she's like, "What, are you gonna charge me with lipstick?"
Yep.
And they're asking her about the baby, and she's like, you'd have to be pretty stupid to take a baby when, I could have taken the salami, and I'm not stupid."
Exactly.
And she's like, can I get a little eye contact here? Um, and then she makes a reference to Tanya Harding on a box of Wheaties. Like they'd have a better shot of seeing Tanya Harding on a box of Wheaties than her, I guess.
Than getting anywhere with her in a
Yes,
sexual fashion.
yes, exactly. So yeah, anything you wanted to add to that little scene?
No. I also was sort of confused as to is it I just assumed I guess it was, the play on her fantasy, but you're right, it could have been a play on something else. Um so yeah, is there anything you want to talk about outside of our shticks, or do you want to jump right in?
Let's jump into the shticks.
Okay. Would you like to start with fashion, perhaps?
Sure. So it's interesting. There's not a lot of change because this is all theoretically taking place on the same day.
Right.
But as you noted, for some reason, Fran changes from what she's wearing, prior to going to the police station. She was wearing like a printed outfit,
Yeah,
zebra.
zebra.
And then for some reason, she changes into that white outfit that I had previously described.
Right.
Um,
And neither of
again,
us know why.
I don't know. Unless, again, her fantasy is like, oh, if I dress up, maybe they'll let me off the hook. I don't know. Um, but I guess my question to you is like, what did you think of her two outfits?
I like the zebra print better than the all white outfit. How about you?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think she pulled off like the dress and stuff. The puffy jacket again did make her seem more in the line of work that she was for.
So I don't know if this counts as future fun or not, but I don't think it'll be relevant in 10 minutes or whenever we get there. Um, she has a lot of puffy coats like that. So this is not
Mhm.
the only one we're going to see. We're going to
Yeah,
see them
but
in
it's that
other
kind of
colors and
fluffy. Yeah, but it's like that kind of fluffy. I don't know. Never
yeah,
mind.
it's not it's it sticks out a bit. It's a bit flamboyant, I guess.
Mhm.
I would wear the zebra print dress, but I would not wear the all white dress.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't wear either, but again, I think she pulls them off.
No, she looks great.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. I'll just point out we've seen Cece's olive green coat before,
Mhm.
and I believe
I
we'll
think
see
you
it
made a
again.
comment. Yeah, I think you made a comment about that
Yeah,
before.
I think I said that we'll see it again because I was thinking of this episode. And
Mhm.
I was trying to rack my brain. I think we're going to see it again later in this season, but I can't recall how many other times she wears it. So is there any other fashion you want to comment on?
Like I said, there's not a lot in this particular episode. Now, I do know the kids wear like pajamas when they're making the ice cream sundaes, and like
Mhm.
it felt like Maggie's felt really old fashioned, like not even 90s, just like old fashioned.
I can't remember what her pajamas look like.
It was like the long kind of dress with the frilly neckline type.
Oh, I
But
had
anyway,
some like that in the
mhm.
90s.
Well, then maybe, yeah. So, Yeah, but I don't think this is very fashion heavy.
No, no, it wasn't. The only other outfit I want to comment on, and if it's okay, I think today maybe instead of going from fashion and notable New Yorkers, we jump to 90s nostalgia since you just
Yeah.
identified one, and my other one is also 90s. Um,
Mhm.
what Gracie's wearing when they get home with the baby. She's wearing like a white shirt with jean overalls with like I think a couple floral patches on them,
Mhm.
which to me just felt very 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, so if we're going into 90s nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
The police station with the computers,
Yes.
really big bulky monitors,
Hmm.
felt very 90s to me. Um
Yeah. Um,
again, go ahead.
I'm gonna say old cars
Yes.
because I can't
Yes.
help myself.
Mhm.
Um, do you have any others?
So, again, I think we've mentioned before, how Cece left the dog in a taxi.
Hmm.
Again, I know Yellow Cab and all that's still around, but I could see it being like an Uber or, Lyft or something instead.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think. So, in terms of like, I don't know, like some of the phrasing seemed a bit more back then. Um, because when they're talking about, it's a Sunday, and they say the gays,
Hmm.
yuppie Jews, like however they say it, seems a bit more back
Seem
then.
dated.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so actually you're referencing the line because Fran explains that the police are like Maxwell asks her when they're in the house, why didn't you just hand the baby over to a police officer right away? Why did you bring him here? And Fran says, oh, well, they're very busy. It's Sunday. You know,
Mhm.
the gays are coming out, the yuppies are working out, and the Jews are eating out.
Mhm. Yeah. And then the other thing I thought of is like Cece's mention, phrase, slap that kid's face on a milk carton and let's get back to work. Like the whole milk carton thing. Like, no, if it was a missing child or something, it would be all over like social media and that kind of stuff
Do they
versus
even
a
have
visit.
paper milk cartons anymore?
I have no idea.
I've only seen plastic, I think. So,
Hmm.
um,
Well, because I don't know if they still like in school. We used to have like those small milk cartons
did
for
those
lunch.
have did those have missing kids on them?
No.
Okay, cool.
But I'm
Because I was
just
gonna say,
saying in
wow, that's a
general,
really
milk
poor
cartons.
choice.
Yeah, that would be kind of sad.
Exactly. Um,
But but yeah.
so
So
I'll mention just the use of the word yuppies, kind of like to
mhm,
your point about things being dated. I can't think of the last time I've heard the word yuppie used in conversation. Um,
mhm,
yuppie is short for a young urban professional, according to
mhm,
Wikipedia. It was coined in the 1980s. So it seems sort of dated. Um,
mhm,
and then also just kind of, you know, the so I think I mentioned the old like cordless phone that Fran was using to call the police
mhm,
station. Um, in that in that scene where she gets the voicemail for the outgoing message for the police department, they break down all these different crimes, like press one for a murder, etc. I think that's probably a reference to the crime wave in New York. Um, so according to Wikipedia, on the page "Crime in New York City," and I quote, "Crime rates in New York City spiked in the 1980s and early 90s as the crack epidemic surged, and then dropped from 1991 to 2018."
hmm,
But so like during that time, I think there was sort of an understanding that the the city was not as safe as it would appear now, if
mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. Do you have any other 90s nostalgia, or would you like to take us to our notable New Yorkers?
Let's go to notable New Yorkers.
There were a bunch in this episode.
There were. Again, right off the bat, Calvin Klein ad referencing the gay pride parade. Uh, Price is Right. Um,
Can I chime in on that for a sec?
yeah.
So Bob Barker, I believe, is the game show host
Mm-hmm.
for The Price is Right. He will make an appearance on an episode later this season, I believe.
Oh,
So
okay. Now I didn't know if you were going to talk about this more, but Brighton makes the comment, "Excuse me, Yentl."
yes, yeah, that I have that in the Yiddish cop, but
Okay,
I mean
we'll
we've
save it
talked
for
about
later.
it. We've talked about it previously, so it's not a big
Hmm.
deal either way.
Okay. Again, just like random references to products like Nestle Crunch Bar and the Nordic Track. Um,
Hmm.
uh, there's a comment by, I believe, Niles asking when Fran first brings the baby, asking if she got him at a yard sale at Mia Farrow's.
Yep.
So obviously, Mia Farrow is an actress, but she was the mother in Rosemary's Baby. So I don't know if that was a specific reference to that or because Mia Farrow had several children.
I assumed I didn't know she was the mother on Rosemary's Baby. I assumed
Mhm.
it was because she had spent a lot of time raising her both biological and adopted children.
Yeah. So
So
and there you go.
I like that you were digging deeper, though.
Yeah. So Yellow Cab, we've talked about before. Gucci, David Caruso
Hmm.
is mentioned.
He's a retired. Oh, do you have
No,
anything on
no,
him?
no, you go ahead.
Okay. He is a retired American producer and actor who's most famous for playing Detective John Kelly on NYPD Blue. That's according to, again, our friends at Wikipedia.
Hmm. Queen Victoria,
Yep.
uh, and then Blossom,
Yeah.
Brighton Blossom.
Yeah. So that line was there's far too much blossom on the tube. That's a reference to Mayim Bialik's sitcom from the late 80s and early 90s, which honestly I am watching right now. So
There
I
you
was
go.
excited.
Nintendo. Um, let's see. Oh, there's a reference to whenever Fran's talking about, oh, I guess I'll have to take him to the orphanage. He can practice saying, "Please, sir, I want some more."
Mm-hmm.
That's famous from Oliver Twist.
Yep.
Let's see. Senator Joel, you kind of mentioned already.
Yeah, that's Bob Dole, former senator from Kansas. At the time that the episode aired originally, he would have been the Senate Minority Leader. He actually ran as a Republican nominee for president in 1996. And the last thing I'll add is that he died in December 2021, so not too long ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And all that's also from our friends at Wikipedia.
Okay. Now, at the end of the scene, um, where they're watching the TV,
Mm-hmm.
like the news thing, Fran mentions like get Al Kaling? Is that the
Al
person?
Cowlings, yes.
Okay.
So her comment was, "Can't we call Al Collings and drive around a bit?" I think is what she said, or something along those lines. But the drive around a bit is what's important because Al Cowlings was O.J. Simpson's former teammate, and he was actually the driver of the infamous white Bronco. And that's
Ah,
according to an article on sportscasting.com.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The Hackney and Lacey reference, I'm assuming is a TV show.
So it's Cagney and Lacey, which was,
Sorry.
it's fine. It was an American police drama that aired on CBS from 1982 to 1988, which focused on two female police detectives in the New York City Police Department, and they lived very different lives.
Okay. And Tyne Daly.
An American actress who played Mary Beth Lacey on Cagney and Lacey, according to
Mhm.
Wikipedia.
Now, is the whole Sergeant Dick thing a reference?
Yes, so it's Dick Sargent
Hmm.
is the name, and he was an American actor who played Darren Stevens on Bewitched. He was the
That
second
is
Darren,
weird. Okay.
and that's according
That
to
is,
Wikipedia, which I'm sure you remember ties into the episode The Family Plumbing, where Brighton and Tiffany are arguing over whether there were two Darrens on Bewitched.
mhm.
So
And then you already mentioned that Jacoby and Myers is an actual like attorney duo.
So according to their webpage, they say they are America's leading full-service consumer law firm with offices throughout the U.S. They do a lot of advertising in New York. Like I can imagine, I've seen billboards on train trestles and things like that. So
America's Most Wanted.
television show about
Yeah.
criminals.
Yep. That's pretty self-explanatory. Bryn Mawr. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I believe it's a college.
Yeah. But I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
I think
Sorry.
you're pronouncing it correctly.
Okay. Obviously, The Young and the Restless.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have anything else?
Just a few to add. Siskel and
Oh,
Ebert.
Secretary. Sorry.
Yes, that's fine. Yes, Secretariat, who is one of the greatest racehorses of all time. He was the ninth winner of the American Triple Crown. That's according to Wikipedia. Apparently, he only lived 19 years, which is sort of sad because I think horses can live a little longer than that. Siskel and Ebert, because Fran compares Jacoby and Meyer to them. There's a reference to Wild Kingdom, which was an American documentary program about wildlife and nature. And you've already mentioned Tanya Harding. So there were a lot on this episode.
Was this before? Did this air before or after the Nancy Kerrigan situation?
Good question.
So I kind of assume after, but I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know when that incident occurred. I know we've talked about it before. Yeah, so that would have, according to Wikipedia, that incident was in January 1994, and this episode aired in 1994.
Okay.
So either right before or right after.
I would think since we're at the beginning of the season, this probably aired at the end of 1994.
According to IMDb, this episode aired on October 17th, 1994.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Did you have anything else?
Not for our notable New Yorker segment.
Okay. Take us to Yiddish Cup.
Okay. So, you've already mentioned Yentl. That is the Barbara Streisand movie that we've discussed previously, where she dresses up like a man and tries to go to yeshiva. When she's first holding the baby, she's talking in Yiddish to him. She says something like "Shana Putum," which means such a pretty face. And then she calls him a little bakala, and I haven't the faintest idea what that is. I don't know if she's just making up words or if she's trying to call him a bubala, or it's clearly a term of endearment the way she's using it. And then most notably the comment, well, we know one thing for sure, his mother was not speaking Hebrew. If his mother had been speaking Hebrew, he would have been circumcised. And the implication is that he was not.
Yes.
As background, Jewish boys typically are circumcised 8 days after being born during a Brit Milah or a bris. So that's what she's referencing. So that's all I had. Did I miss any Yiddish that you didn't know?
Not that I'm aware of.
Awesome. I love it when that happens.
Yeah. So future fun.
Okay. So this is not the only time that Fran is responsible for a young child, and the next time is not following 9 months of swollen ankles and an epidural. But from that next experience, she learns that when she does have a baby, she wants to have a husband who she can hand the baby over to and say, here, it's your turn. I'm playing Mahjong. As I sort of indicated before, Elliot is not Maxwell's father's name. His name is James Sheffield. We meet him in season 4 in the episode Me and Mrs. Joan. He also dies in season 5 in the episode Immaculate Conception. There's also the comment about Maxwell being a natural, as he's holding the baby, and if my expertise serves, we got to go change the diaper. Which is kind of interesting because we later learned that Niles did most of the diaper changing when the Sheffield kids were babies. And then my final and most controversial, if you will, future fun comment is that Fran does have children and she does demand an epidural when she goes into labor. So that's all I have for this. I think it's time to rate the episode.
Yes, and it's my turn.
Excellent. I love it when it's your turn.
Okay, so I'm actually gonna give it a 5, even though there are some comments, like I said, that I wasn't too pleased with, but the episode as a whole was just like really fun. It was nice to see kind of like that domestic side. Funny to see her show up on the news. um, so yeah. What about you?
I'm also giving it a 5. You're right. There are a couple of lines that did not age very well. But I thought the setup was great. I love that they were on the subway. I love that Fran's immediate conclusion is that the woman abandoned her baby. I love as you put it, the domestic scene with her and Maxwell. And most importantly, I love that the grilling Gracie gives Fran and Maxwell at the end. Like, just for that scene, this episode gets a 5 in my book. I think it's delightful.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, the actress did a really good job of delivering those questions and all of that. Like,
yeah, she's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you have anything else to kind of overarching that you wanted to discuss about this?
No.
I mean, why do you think she changed just to see if she could get some kind of leniency or no?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think it was more like, I've been taking care of this strange baby all day. Let me go change. But it's also like a weird thing to do because clearly like the police seem to be after you, which query why. Go ahead.
It was an interesting outfit choice too, though, if you know you're going to the police station.
Correct. I guess so she's indicating she's innocent because she's wearing white.
Oh.
I don't know. I do think that's a little weird. I also think it's a little weird that if the police have figured out who she is and who she works for, why the police have not showed up at the Sheffield home.
Well, because of the traffic, Debbie.
Oh, I guess. But I mean, clearly they care enough about a kidnapped baby to leak it to the press.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's also sort of strange to me that I'll just put it this way. I've been on a lot of I've ridden the subway a lot. I've never offered to hold someone else's anything. I do my best to like have my headphones in and my phone like in my pocket, listening to music and a book and hoping no one talks to me. So I'm also a millennial, so there is that.
Yeah.
But I feel like my standard of like, please no one talk to me, please no one talk to me on the subway is like most people's like baseline. Instead of being like, let me help you with all those packages. Yeah.
But again, still a 5.
Yeah, no, it's still in my book. It's still a 5, like because of Gracie and just the other. I guess the other thing I will say that if I were to deduct points, which clearly I have not, it seems to me very childish. I guess that Fran changes the baby's pretend name like halfway through the day because she got tired of it.
Yeah,
that seems just very juvenile to me. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think I kind of pointed out some of the things not too pleased about, but again, I think you're right, that Gracie exchange. And that kitchen scene, again, when they're working together to try to change that diaper and stuff,
Mm,
elevate it. So I
yeah.
think that's it.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited The Nanny. Join us next week when we'll be discussing episode 29, A Star is Unborn.
If you would like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.